For January 16th, 2025. I think we have all commissioners coming this evening, but as of now, Mr. Ehrlich would be excused. I'd be looking for an approval of the minutes from our previous meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Roger. Is there a second? Oh, okay. Then I will second it. They're moved and seconded. Are there any questions or concerns on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, this time we have public comments. You have up to 3 minutes for public comments. Tonight's agenda is 2 items, a staff update and a potential residential development on the west and north side of town. Any public comments? Any public comments? Oh, sir, you need to step up to the podium over there and turn the microphone, give us your name and address. Okay. And you have up to 3 minutes.
Paul Soike, 2472 East Sauk Road. I'd like to know what the city's plan to do with the road when you're going to put about 200 more cars a day on that road. That's one of the poorest roads in the county and needs a lot of work. And I know the problems, trying to coordinate with everybody else. But if the city wants to put development like this on here, it's up to the city to do something about that. We're also concerned in the neighborhood about the speed limits. We have probably half the cars going 45 miles an hour up that road, across the bike path. It's a dangerous situation because part of that road, there's sight lines that aren't sufficient. So I don't think the city's planning very well where they're putting development.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is William Alborn. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Clean Test, 1611 Sunset Road. And I have a concern about the housing development that's going in. It's located to the west of our company, and we have property there we want to expand into. Currently, we get noise complaints from the development across the street from Sunset Road from us, and we do everything we can to make sure that we aren't causing a nuisance to those residents. And our building isolates those residents from the noise of the operations on the opposite side of the building. But unfortunately, if we expand and we continue to try to isolate the noise away from the residents to the north of us, we're going to be causing issues possibly for the residents in this new development that's located to the southwest of us. And I would ask that you consider doing something for noise abatement for these residents with the planned expansion, so that they're not subjected to that noise, and we're able to continue to operate in such a manner that we're not inconveniencing or causing disruption to the people that will want to live in these homes.
Thank you. It's a good suggestion, Bill. Thanks for coming tonight. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? Okay. Seeing none, then we're going to move into the first agenda item, which is a pre-concept plan. This is a discussion item only for tonight. It's a presentation of a proposed single-family subdivision containing approximately 97 lots located on 37 acres of land on the north side of East Sauk Road and west of the Ozaki Interurban Trail. Newman Development Incorporated is the developer. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as the title states, this is a pre-concept plan, and this is something relatively new that the city has done. Shortly after I got here, 5 years ago, it was actually someone from the town of Port that mentioned when Highland Point was first proposed that they would have appreciated just kind of a heads up prior to getting into any meetings where concept plans or preliminary plats were going to get voted on, and it was an action item. And I thought that was a really good idea, so shortly after, I introduced to the Plan Commission this idea of a pre-concept plan. So pre-concept plan is essentially a public informational meeting to identify the issues, concerns that any impacted residents or adjacent residents may have, and get those identified prior to any concept plan coming to the next meeting. And a concept plan is something that the commission votes on, and it essentially clears the way for, if a concept plan is approved, the developer is given notice that they can move forward with the preliminary plats and with engineering and everything else. So prior to have any action item right out of the gate, I like this idea of just getting just this discussion and just what, as I call it, this heads up. And so with that, this is a discussion item only. There will be no action by the Plan Commission tonight. We got a little bad luck with Newman in person for this meeting, so they are or should be on the phone for any questions and answers, or from both the residents or from the commission members. And so what we'll do here is I'll give a quick presentation or quick slides on what's a conceptual plan for this subdivision. And then I'll turn it over to our Newman rep that's on the conference call right now for any comments he wants to add that I did not. And then we can open it up to questions from the commission. And so with that, let me just define the project area real quick. It's, as the mayor noted in his introductory agenda introduction, it is 37 acres with 90 proposed lots approximately on the north side of East Sauk Road. And so the red is the defined boundary of the proposed subdivision, just south of the power lines, north of East Sauk Road, and then northwest of where the interurban kind of clips off that corner, as you see in the southeast section of this boundary, and then the floodplains just over to the west. So right now, and then everyone I'm sure is aware of this, but just for reference, looking north at the site from East Sauk Road, there's the bicycle path, and then we see Highland Point that's under construction a little to the east. And then this is just the initial preconceptual plan that Newman has provided to us, and just getting some definitions or kind of get your bearings on that. Where the title says conceptual plans, those are the power lines running east and west, and that is the northern boundary of the subdivision. East Sauk is on the south, that clipped area where the interurban runs, and then we have that's the eastern edge, and then again, just bumping up onto the floodplain is the west boundary. Right now, we're looking at just kind of the layout here, and right now Newman is looking at, it's going to be very similar to Highland Point as far as homes and lot sizes, ranging from 70-foot wide lots to 80-foot wide lots. I think that is it. So that is essentially the conceptual plan that we have right now. If we move forward with a concept plan, we'll have, I would imagine Newman will probably want to add a little more detail as we go along, and they'll be here in person. But as of now, this is generally the conceptual plan that they're showing the city. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Ryan, I think, is on the line from Newman. Ryan, are you there?
I am, and thank you, Bob, for the introduction. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, thank you, and apologies. I'd certainly prefer to be in person, but other obligations have gotten in the way. But Ryan Fritz with Newman Developments. We've been involved with development in Port Washington, most recently in both the Greystone and Highland Point subdivision. And we know that this type of housing product is in major need, major demand. We know it's feasible and it works in this area, and it's just a tested and improved product. So really we see this proposal as a continuation of Highland Point immediately to the south, as Bob had said. And we'd be thrilled to have the opportunity to continue to stay in Port Washington. So just a brief overview of the overall layout. We're proposing two entrances off of East Sauk Road. Really they're as far apart as possible while we can maintain sight lines and avoid any environmental features. We also have 4 stub roads in total serving adjacent parcels for potential future uses. we had some back and forth with planning staff, but this was the recommendation, and we agree and concur with the ultimate layout. Sorry, can you repeat that?
That was not a.
Oh.
If there's another caller on the line, please mute yourself.
So we see the road layout as really encouraging connectivity and traffic flow. We do have one cul-de-sac proposed, and really that's not a stub due to environmental features immediately to the north. There's just a rather large wetland pocket that I think long-term we wouldn't expect a road to ever go through there. But ultimately we would apply the standard city roadway specifications. And this design, as Bob had mentioned, is our R4 zoning being applied. So the majority of lots are 70 feet wide. As you move to the north, you do get a couple that are 75, 80 feet wide. And really it just came out to how the site lays out geometrically. But we also have stormwater facilities proposed really on both the western and eastern edges of the property. And we would ultimately plan on connecting sewer at the very northeast corner off of Sauk Road. So I think that's a general overview. Happy to answer any questions.
Bob, the only questions I have is in the initial conversations here. Can you just walk us through like what the next steps are for them or us?
The subdivision process, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. So after this meeting, we expect that Newman will submit a conceptual plan for either perhaps the next meeting or the meeting after that. A conceptual plan will be something that the commission takes action on, whether yay, nay, or with conditions, whatever they may be. And then once the concept plan, if a concept plan is approved, they can move forward with a full engineering and the preliminary plat. And once the preliminary plat is approved, we would also take into let me back up. Once a concept plan, if a concept plan is approved, we have to take into annexation as part of this, and as is amending the city's sanitation sewer area, and that would be done by Sewer PAC, and that is kind of a multi-month process that's underway now. And if the sewer map is approved, recommended for approval by the Sewer PAC, and the DNR approves, that changes the city boundary to allow for sewers. And then with annexation, we can go forward with a preliminary plat, and then that leads to construction. And then the zoning is involved with that. So we got a few more months yet.
And I don't know if this is a Roger question as an engineer. Sauk Road, I've biked that many times. Like, that is not very safe. And the road is not in a great condition. Is that something that we would be looking into? Is that something we would put in the developer's agreement to increase the safety there? What would you recommend?
I think certainly, I mean, we heard a comment earlier tonight. I think that's a good recommendation. One of the things I was going to bring up, even if we don't want to own the road, maybe we want to consider entering with a maintenance agreement with the town of Grafton and the town of Port, so that we take over maintenance of that road at least up to the interurban or maybe to the connection of their roads. Because number one, it just makes it efficient for snow plowing, because our plows are going down the road, they pick up their plow, they drive quarter mile, put their plow back down. I mean,
It's ridiculous.
there's just not logic to that. So we owning the road is a little difficult, because we're going to leave some residents basically on an island for annexation. So we need to avoid that, just because those are the rules for annexation.
And is the south side of the road Grafton and the north side town of Port, or is it, we just don't know whose road that is right there?
My assumption looking at that, it would be as you said. Actually, coincidentally, we had an email from the county highway commissioner maybe a couple of weeks ago, kind of asking, hey, who owns what? Who's maintaining what on this road? It's just, it needs work. So
Yeah.
I think all parties are kind of seeing it needs work.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking is, I don't know if we delegate that down to traffic safety, but that area there, wherever, as you look at the maps here with the multiple entrances on the east and then west side, that will create, some interesting pieces there as well as increased traffic. So it's a good point. Bob, I did have a question based upon the comments from Clean Test. Have we ever, in the developer's agreement, put in there a contingency for noise abatement, either through landscaping or berming?
Not since I've been here, but it's hardly an outlier of a suggestion.
Yeah. Just looking at the way their boundary agreement is that those properties there, it looks like there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 properties on the north side there that would potentially be impacted by that. They'd have a nice little hill in their backyard. So when you look at the conceptual layout that they had sent us. So our friends from Newman, if you're listening, I mean, those would be two things we'd ask you to start to consider as you're moving forward is how to protect those properties from what we know is an industrial area there just to the north and a good community partner without, exasperating an already known kind of issue.
Sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe the industrial parcel is to the east.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you're correct.
Yeah. So to answer that comment, I guess stormwater facilities serve as somewhat of a buffer, but I guess we'd be open to whether it's an outlot that's ultimately maintained by the HOA, having some type of landscape buffer. Otherwise, a private easement that could be maintained by either the homeowners or the HOA. But I would expect buyers to ultimately put up screening if something would be problematic for them. But if we needed to create an outlot or landscape easement and do a natural buffer in that sense, I think that's an option.
Okay, I would just ask that you kind of keep that on your radar as you're doing your preliminary plans then. Thank you. Eric, Roger, anything else? Yeah, Eric?
Is there any plan for a park in this neighborhood?
There is not.
Is there a need for a park in this neighborhood? I guess that would be to Bob.
Once it's annexed in, we'd have to incorporate that into like the park and recreation plan we have with a 1/4-mile radiuses that we look at.
Okay. Because I think that would be a suggestion is either a park or like a payment in lieu of, so that something else could be improved somewhere else in the city. That, and then yes, I would also encourage some sort of, if there's no appetite for like a berm, at least some tree planting, so that could fill in over time and knock down some of the noise and then also screen just the visual appearance. I think that sounds fair. That's all I had.
Yeah, I guess my comment probably is more for us as Plan Commission or for me working with Bob, but we have these road extensions, these dead ends on the subdivision, just to kind of avoid getting into some of the problems we have with other planned subdivisions. I would recommend that we maybe consider road reservations on the adjacent property so that it's clear that we're intending these roads to go through. And a road reservation is not an easement, it's not a right-of-way, so it's for all intents and purposes, it's lines on paper, but it's a strong indication that, hey, we plan on a road network through here.
It's a good idea. Thank you, Roger. Okay, anything else from Newman?
No, not at this time. We appreciate the feedback.
Excellent, thank you. All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Have a good night. That brings us to our next agenda item, which is staff update, discussion item only. This is a staff presentation of the 2024 Plan Commission actions and upcoming 2025 issues. Bob.
Okay, so it's been a kind of a point of emphasis both by the mayor and the city administrators that the boards, commissions, and committees of the city. They kind of meet and update regularly, both with the Common Council and with the committees themselves. And so, starting last year, every committee started with a charter to work with. There were essentially work goals or goals of accomplishments that wanted to be highlighted, and this culminates with an annual report. And then we'll start having this year, every committee will be reporting out to the Common Council. And so with January here, I just thought it would be a good time, obviously, to go through and a real 30,000-foot review of both what Plan Commission has done or what happened during the 2024, and then just looking ahead to this coming year. So I only have a couple slides to review, and then we can kind of get into any discussion if you have any. So real quick, it was kind of some balls and strikes. I think we had, not balls and strikes, but singles and doubles as far as using a baseball analogy. There wasn't there wasn't a lot of larger projects, so we kind of had a lot of conditional uses and some use changes. So just taking a sampling here, I think I included Sir James Pub just because it's a staple on Franklin Street for so long, and that facade improvement that they did, I think, is just a notable improvement and sits well with Franklin Street. So I added that. A long vacant Sundance Bar is now Lucky Devil Bar and Grill. There was the expansion of Highland Point 2 subdivision, and also, the recording studio. I don't think there's any recording studios in the area, and that's under construction on South Park Street. So those are just kind of some of the, the little interesting highlights that I included. I've been including this every year since I've been here, and it doesn't, on the surface, it doesn't say much. It just says what kind of approvals the Plan Commission performed that year, be it land divisions, be it building and site plans, rezonings, et cetera. But I think after it accumulates after a few years, you start seeing a little bit of a pattern with the totals. And so, I was a little surprised. It seemed to me that some of the agendas this year were a little on the small side, for good or for better, or good or for worse. But so I was a little surprised that we bounced back a little up from last year. It kind of reflects, I think, these last year and this year. I think it reflects kind of the post-pandemic where we've heard this anecdotally from developers where interest rates are high, materials and labor is high, and so that probably had some type of deprecating effect on overall the Plan Commission agenda. So I think just if I had to guess going forward, I think that'll start upticking more. I'm seeing, if interest rates start leveling off, if costs start leveling off, then I think we'll probably start hitting that, action items of, in 2019 and 20. So it's just an FYI. It's hardly signed. There's not a lot of threads you can pull out, but it's just an interesting summation of the year. And so going off of last year's goals that we kind of went through in mid-year of last year. So these are kind of the goals from the charter that the Plan Commission reviewed. And so just real quick, going through those as a summary. As you know, the city's undergoing a complete overhaul of its 50-year-old zoning code. And so the goal was to really keep that on schedule for mid to late this year of a final draft and have it on schedule within 60 days. We're currently meeting that goal, but I always do say with the zoning code, it's more the norm than it isn't that it's such an important document. It's very labor intensive. It touches every property in the city and it lasts for a generation. It's more the norm than the than not that these things take time, particularly when there's drafts out. Then we start the vetting process, both internally, both with the commission and the public at large. So as of now, our consultants are drafting chapters, and I think you'll probably start seeing that these draft chapters for public consumption and plan commission review and consumption probably starting next month. With the approval of the police and fire safety building out on LL, I was directed to prepare a request for proposal for redevelopment of the current police and fire block. That's drafted, and then once I think the city administrator and the council are ready to take a look at that, it's ready to go. What I will do this time around is make sure that that RFP draft is presented to this body prior to anything finalized. This is something that the mayor has been very interested in, is looking at redevelopment or development on the south side and how much would utilities running from essentially where the industrial park is, down to what we call the Bob Tillman land or even Cedar Vineyard. We do have some rough costs estimated and just needs additional refinements that we'll have in the first half of this year. Same thing with the north side redevelopment. That we were looking at that, but given that we do have the possible data center proposal, obviously the scale of that is just kind of throwing the initial estimates we had out, and we'll look at that as we go if that data center moves forward. And then we had more just kind of tasks for myself. Identify and map redevelopment sites citywide, just so we have a current map. Mapping kind of takes a while. We have a small staff, and it's kind of, I have to jump in with mapping requests when there's not inspections or engineering projects, so I hope to have that this coming year. And then track plan commission recommendations, and that's been ongoing, and I do have that. And then lastly is the updates to the commission, and that's started last year. And I think as staff, we all get used to this new concept of actually updating our commissions, whom we staff and serve. We'll continue that in '25. I think the question for the commission really is, how often do you want these updates? I think, quarterly, biannual, annual. I think quarterly might be, it's up to me, but if it would be biannual or annual, I think that would make a little more pop to the presentation. But, I'll let the mayor and the commission kind of noodle on that one. And then lastly, just looking ahead, looking at '25, and here's what some things that the commission can expect to see. I kind of alluded to this a few minutes ago. With the draft chapters now starting to get drafted, it's now up to the commission to start reviewing those and providing input on that for myself and the consultants. It's kind of a time-consuming process. It's a zoning code after all. So my question was, how and when? I'm not so sure that if we allocate, 30 minutes or even less at the end of a meeting, I'm not sure that's a real productive. I don't know if that's been the most productive way to do it. I think given that we may be having every now and then long agendas, I'm not sure if the commissioners will be real dialed in. So I guess my question is to the commission is, we have draft chapters of zoning codes coming for the first half of this year. And it's not just, here's my recommendation. I think it's something that the commissioners really need to chew on and prepare for ahead of time. So if there's a preference about how and when I say when, is it at the end of the agenda? Is it before, as a work session? Is it separate plan commission meeting? That's what I'm throwing out there. And then elsewhere, looking at annexations and comp plan amendments, and I was thinking of, with subdivisions coming in the town, from the towns, this Highland Point North, as they're calling it, will require an annexation. So expect to see some more annexations if we get more subdivision approvals, because they will be coming in from the various towns, I think. Look for more extraterritorial reviews of plating and CSMs. I think if the city becomes a third-class designation, it kicks out the city's extraterritorial review from 1.5 miles to 3 miles. And so if we do become a city of the third class, expect to see more of the city exercising its extraterritorial review authority out to 3 miles. This really hasn't been done much in the past, but I have scheduled, there's like 3 or 4 conditional uses coming in for 12-month reviews that were approved in '24. I think the first one might be in April. And so, as you may recall, these conditional uses, when there's an approval, one of them is subject to a 12-month review. And so essentially it's a conditional use is approved, 12 months later, it's kind of a check-in, see if there's any issues or corrections that need to be made. And then bouncing from the commission to more staff, just finishing up those 24 charter goals that were not completed, and then just kind of a priority of my own, getting the city's official map and zoning map updated multiple times per year and up on the website. And then lastly is establishing cross-department downtown plan implementation strategies. We just started that. That's been something the city administrator is wanting to push, and then just see what of those recommendations that came out of the downtown plan, what's feasible in short-term, mid-term, or even the long-term ones. And then lastly is tracking and posting of key performance indicators. We've identified them. I think this is the year where I think some of the departments will actually, I think it was kind of a new concept last year, and I think some of the staff, I think that with the strategic plan, I think this is the year where we'll coalesce and start KPIs in earnest. That's what, at least speaking for my department. And that's what I have. I leave you with the 2 questions I raised, with updates, how often, and then really what's the best way do you want to handle drafting, reviewing these draft zoning chapters once they start coming in. I don't need an answer now, but it's just something for the commission to think about now or noodle on and let me know.
I can start, Bob. I'd like to see these biannually. I don't really care for the fact that we're moving goals from last year into this year. So I think we need to, as a commission, spend a little more time on making sure that we're on track for those pieces. And then for the zoning code review, if I could offer a reflection on a process for that as they're coming in. I guess as commissioners, our responsibility is to review those, but it's also going to come in and it's going to be phone book thick. So what I would like, and even if we can have the consultant do that if they're not already, is like if they could do a T-chart of what it was and what it is, so we can just kind of rapidly see the adjustments in those zoning codes, opposed to reading red line documents and trying to figure out how to read the sentence when those words are all.
And these will be sections at a time, just to avoid the phone book approach.
Yeah, but I think if they come in those sections, T-charted out, that would be pretty good and understandable, especially since we're going to have new planning commissioners on the commission who weren't part of that earlier conversation. I would request that the RFP for the downtown be brought next month, regardless of what internal conversations are. I requested that in June, so I'd like to see that now, so we can begin to plan for that, because we're going to get very busy. And then the other thing is, and I know we're working with a consultant on it, but also next month I would like to start to discuss the zoning code for data centers on the north side of town, regardless of where we are in that project. If we're really going to be a destination, we should lay that out sooner than later so that they have the guidelines to be successful. And I know that we're looking at some of the zoning codes across the country, but we've got a lot of good feedback that we should be putting Port in a really proactive position so that we're not prohibited from expecting something as a result of not having a code or a ordinance for it.
Real quick to clarify, so bring something or have a discussion item on this at the next agenda meeting, or at the next plan commission meeting.
Yeah. And then just for the commission, as a result of some of the potential needs to expedite different things, we may have multiple planning commission meetings coming up in the next few months. And we'll work hard on those calendars. Yeah. Eric or Roger, or anything from the school district on this you want to throw in?
I'd vote twice a year for the updates. I think that's fine. And then the zoning code stuff, I think anything much longer than an hour at a time, you start to just want to get out of there. And I think if that starts to happen, then you're not really giving it the attention it needs. So I would say if you can break it up in what you think would be hour-long chunks, that would be helpful.
Yeah, they'll be in section of the zoning code, section of the zoning code, yeah.
I mean, reviewing code.
Okay, this is the first time myself going through a revised zoning code, and I was going
How
in.
often were you induced with narcolepsy?
Well, that was the thing. At my previous stops, I never had to be involved with that. Certainly now, where I'm the Department of One. So going into this project, I was really leery and I was a little nervous. But okay, I'll be honest. I'm enjoying going through. I'm enjoying
Well, I
going
would
through
hope
those
so.
drafts. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I make the joke about narcolepsy, just that it's just so much technical detail that if that's not
Yes.
your aptitude, that can be very difficult to do.
But previous, you hear in my, where other planners and communities, you hear these horror stories of these zoning code updates lasting, going a year two, year three, beyond what was originally approved. Then you get to the larger cities and it's like $1 million budget all of a sudden, and it's like 5 years in. And so that's for like large cities, very large cities. But so I wasn't sure what to expect. And so far it's been a really smooth process. It won't stay that way. It's zoning. It affects so much. And there'll be hard discussions. But so far I'm really pleased.
Awesome. Well, thanks for those updates. Any other pieces?
I would just say to echo Ted in having that T-charter crosswalk, we're under a complete review of all policy in the district, and so we're crosswalking. And we had our first meeting this last week, and for board members to see this is what it was, this is what it is now, this is a quick crosswalk, expedited the process. So
And then I would just expect we do our diligence when we get our packets. Okay? We're all good? All right. That leads us to adjourn. Mr. Ryer?
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Strom? All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.